Hello and welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast. My name is Graham Arrowsmith.
And my name's Kevin Appleby. So, Graham, today we've got Tony Smith with us. Now, Tony has been a friend of ours for quite a while, but one of those people that we've never actually met in person. Yeah. Now, the interesting thing here with Tony, we've known all about Tony and his businesses and so on for a long time, but Tony recently was very, very brave and put his head above the parapet on LinkedIn and started talking hugely about mental health. And I thought it'd be really good to get Tony into the podcast and talk about that subject.
Well, I think it's a subject that's of its moment, isn't it? And Tony's going to tell us probably a lot more than we're expecting. Well, certainly than I'm expecting. Tony, without further ado, what was your transition like into this whole area of mental health?
Oh, that's a very big and wide question. Thank you for that. That'll take us through for the next 50 minutes or so. Right. Well, I suppose a little bit of potted history for me, really, might help set the scene. I spent 30 years as a police officer and did various jobs, child protection, crime investigations, all sorts of things. And one of the roles that I took on was as a hostage and crisis negotiator. So whilst there is some element of dealing with, shall we say, volatile situations and people that decide to barricade themselves in places with firearms and things of that nature, quite a sizable amount of the work was dealing with people who are in crisis, that have come to a point in their lives where they don't know which way to turn, they don't know what choices they've got, they don't see themselves as having any choice. And so you get to deal with people at that crucial point in their lives where they're threatening. Sadly, in some cases, they continue to take their own life. So I, through the training that I had associated with that, the involvement that I'd had, the cases that I'd dealt with, I thought I'd got a pretty good insight into those moments and the things that were going through people's lives at that point. When I left the police about 14, 15 years ago, I carried on with being involved in, I suppose, mental health side of things. I was involved, chaired a charity that provided counselling services. I was involved in mediation and sorting out disputes. But all of that sort of made me think, oh, well, I'm fairly empathetic to people. I'm fairly sympathetic. I understand things. But for a variety of reasons in my own life, I became aware that things were changing for me. I couldn't get a proper perspective on things. I would get into a downward spiral of self-fulfilling prophecy of, well, this will never work out, this can't possibly, and then you'd prove yourself right because you're always focusing on the negative. And so I suppose it was about maybe about 12 years ago or so that I was diagnosed with depression. Not seriously. I've not got to the point of wanting to end it all or to take my own life. Nothing as serious as that. But it was a case that I became more aware of the benefits of medication and how that can help to restore the chemical imbalance in the brain that allows you to sort of actually focus on the reality of things rather than the perceived negatives. Mm-hmm. Well, that was fine, and I continue to be on medication to this day, and I think I always will be on a steady dose just to try and maintain the equilibrium. But what brought me to start talking about it, as Kevin said, and this was only, what was it, Kevin, about 4 weeks ago, something like that, 4 or 5 weeks.
Yes. And I started reading your posts on LinkedIn with a lot of interest because you're going into things in quite a lot of depth, Tony. And it surprised me because I always thought, oh, Tony, is this upbeat guy? He's always talking about great things that are going on, talking about this fantastic telecoms business. I'd never have guessed this.
And I think therein lies the rub. There's almost the classic, clown always smiling type scenario. It's like, you never see the clown crying. Yes, that would be me. I would be the person that would laugh things off. I would always want to have a joke. I'd make light of things. I would minimise and deflect things. But on that particular day, when I wrote the article that you sort of picked up on first off, Kevin, it was and I can't tell you particularly what triggered it, what made things worse. It was just at a point where a number of issues came together. It all culminated, and I just got to a point I couldn't function. I literally couldn't function. I couldn't focus. I knew I'd got 101 things. The rational, logical brain said, "Oh well, just take it one step at a time. Just do one thing. Just get on and do one thing, and then another thing will follow, and all of that stuff." But I couldn't. I couldn't manage to focus. And the old saying of, but people have said it since. Always pick up the phone. I'm always here, ready to chat. Give me a call. And I know there were people there who would have been more than happy to sit down, have a beer, have a cup of coffee or whatever with me and just have a chat, just listen to me rambling. My lovely partner, Kate, said to me, just write about it. And I said, I don't know. I don't know how to talk to somebody. I don't even know, how do I ring somebody up? And what do I say? How do I air it? She said, just say what's in your mind. And that's what I did. I sat down, I typed out this long outpouring of literally what was in my head and my heart, the confusion that I was feeling, the frustration, I can't even find the words to describe it. It was just a total confusion. And I just poured all of that out. And that's what you saw, Kevin. That was that sort of from the heart, literally. There was no planning of it. There was no re-scripting. There was no referencing. It was just literally talking about how I felt at that time in that place. I'm a little bit emotional there.
Having a beer or a cup of tea with one person. But how many virtual beers and virtual cups of tea did that then?
I am absolutely blown away. I never envisaged it. Well, first off, it helped me just in that moment, just by writing things down, because it gave me that, as I say, sense of perspective. It just the talking it through, just writing it down, almost seemed to unravel the knots in the ball of wool for me. I could see some logic there, and it calmed things. It just gave so much more clarity just in doing that.
I remember, it's a long time ago now, but I was working for a big organisation, and I was getting upset. I was getting upset at night, thinking, this person thinks this about me, and this wasn't at like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. It was at the wrong side of 12 o'clock, if you know what I mean. It was more like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and you're thinking, what the hell's going on here? And I'm worried about what this person is thinking, saying, and should I feel less about myself? Now, this is a long while ago. And one of the things, I don't know where it came from, but there's one night I basically got a piece of paper, and I wrote down what was being said, and I'll deal with it when I wake up in the morning. So I kind of wrote it down, and then when I woke up in the morning, I had a look at this thing, and it seemed so trivial. It just seems so utterly, trivial, and it was almost like the sort of person involved wouldn't have wanted that. I'm sure, might not have particularly liked me, but wouldn't have wanted the hurt to have followed it. That said, it did, and that basically. I'm sorry, and it was probably somebody telling me that I've got to get on with the point. But the point I was trying to get to is that in the middle of the night, it felt massive. Didn't go on for that long, but long enough, a few weeks. And writing it down was a technique. And then I was having a look at it when I woke up and thinking, what the hell was I worried about that for? And in the scheme of things, whether it's the same idea or whatever, the whole idea was think of that person as almost like an ant, because that's what they are to you. They don't make that your life is your life, etc. And even though they're a person, their opinion of you means nothing. It's so minute, and so I don't want you to worry about it anymore. But the act of writing it down and then coupling that with rationalizing a particular scenario. I don't know whether this is logical or otherwise, but it helped me.
Yeah, and I think that is it. You come to realise, and I think that process helps you to realise that there's so much that you take on. You worry about family circumstances. You worry about, as you say, about what people think, or are you performing the way that you think others think you should be doing, or you have money problems, whatever, relationship issues, whatever it is. There's so much of that that's outside of your control. The thoughts that other people have, the actions that they undertake, you can't control that. That's down to them.
Absolutely.
All you can control is that area of influence, that area of control that you actually have power over. How you behave, how you react, how you deal with people, how you speak to people. You can seek to influence those other areas and extend your area of influence, but you can't control it.
Yeah, but no, you can't. You can't control effectively what they think about you.
Yes,
but you can control your opinion of what that is. So,
absolutely.
In other words, I don't. And where was it? This is years and years ago. I was working for Lego, and they had this. They had this guy come in, and they were talking about. You remember those binders, Kevin? I think we all had them back in the day. Probably you had one as well, Tony. They had those binders, and time managers they called them. And I think it might have been a Danish company as well. But the point is, they came in, did this thing, showed us how to use the time manager, and they gave us this little book. And one of the things about time management at that time, they were saying, if anybody's negative around you, imagine getting like a big glass bowl and putting it over your head, so that other person's negativity bounces off the glass. You can't get it into your head. It's like an invisible stopper of their crap, and you're just not going to allow it to come into your head. And this idea stuck with me. I was thinking, well, okay, well, fair enough. Maybe they can say what they like, but I'm like smiling and everything and just not hearing a damn thing.
Yeah.
So it's the idea of actually dealing with it is in your control, but it's not necessarily getting into a conversation with them and trying to defeat their argument, because you never will win that. But you can actually just choose to frankly ignore them.
Yes.
And move on to other areas that's more lush ground for you. Yeah,
absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. It is how you control, and that comes down to mindset again, doesn't it? It's how you perceive things, but how you accept that you're not going to change these things, or even if you try to change them, it's not in your power to actually change it. So you've just got to get on with your own things. But but yeah, it's definitely that mindset, and that the whole process helped me with that and helped me come to terms and yeah.
So you had people actually, because of your post, you had people say, "Hold on, how can I help?"
Oh, well, there was a whole gamut of things. Firstly, I was absolutely amazed. I'm still amazed at the amount of hits, engagement, contacts, comments, posts and private messages that I got. People that I've not had any contact with in easily 30 years, that, I would not expect them to be aware of what are my circumstances, where I was, what I was doing, but they picked up on it. And they got in touch and said, "You've always been a guy that you could talk to people. You've always been an easygoing guy, etc., etc." Plenty of plaudits and compliments, but just the fact that actually they remembered and reached out, and the usual thing, everybody saying, "Oh, well, let's have a talk, or if you need to sort of get in touch, please do." But the other thing was that there were so many people that the message resonated with. They recognized what I was saying, and they said, "Wow, that's, you're saying all the things that I've felt, but never known how to say it." I've had people from the United States, from Trinidad and Tobago, from Dubai, people I've no connection with. They're not first connections on LinkedIn. They're not people that I've known in any way, shape or form, who have made comment and said how much it's resonated with them, how much it's meant, even to the point where there was one lady that got in touch to say that there was the anniversary, several years anniversary, on the day that I'd written and published that her father had committed suicide. And the family could never understand why it happened, why he hadn't reached out to somebody, why he hadn't spoken to somebody about it. And she just said that what I'd written, is that like an Ernie Wise phrase, to play what I wrote, that actually that gave some solace, it gave some explanation, it gave some understanding of the turmoil that he was in at the time, and why he couldn't find the words to reach out to somebody, even though he would know that there were people who cared logically, but the mind wasn't allowing him to process that at the time. So it's just an amazing response. And of course it happened, I didn't realise again at the time, but it was Mental Health Awareness Week. So I just resolved on the back of that response to then sort of create a post every day during that week that just reflected my journey, the responses that I'd got, and just build on that. So it's been amazing.
How long has it been since that week?
I think it was about 4 to 5 weeks, something of that order.
Okay. So another month or so has passed since that time. And in what way have you adapted yourself during that period?
I think, as I say, the rush of rationalisation, of regaining that sense of perspective, and even, dare I say, enhancing it of actually sort of grasping that and saying, right, no, there's a very positive thing here. It is that mindset thing. I've let go of so much of the things that were worries in the hinterland. Just as an aside, I suppose what I've taken on is, when I was working to become a mediator, the mentor that I had, in actual fact, sadly he's passed now, but he was a Buddhist monk. Not, there was no garb and monk's robes and things like that. He was just an ordinary guy, but he practiced and lived his life as a Buddhist. And he had a wonderful saying of let the universe take its course. And he applied that to, if you're in mediation, one of the things you're seeking to do is to get people to meet on some common ground and come to some agreement. But his point was, it's not for me as the mediator to impose that solution on them or to make that solution. My job is to facilitate them coming to the understanding and coming to the solution themselves. If it doesn't happen, it's because the time's not right for it to happen. And that's what he meant by let the universe take its course. Don't take the blame on yourself because you haven't been successful at that moment. And it's a little bit, and to a degree, that's the same with sales and business, isn't it? You can go out and you can visit people, you can sort of seek to sell things, but sometimes people don't. Strangely, and I know it's difficult to believe, but sometimes people don't actually want to buy from you.
Yeah.
But
we were always trained, as a cigarette salesman, that if they said no, then you'd open your book at the beginning and say, well, clearly I haven't got my point across, and it was like you start again. And I think I got up to about 3 goes once, but just for the fun of it. I mean, but it was the American way of doing this, up to a point. It became a bit like vaudeville. You'd have people in the shop, because it would only be like little CTNs or little shops, newsagent shops, and you were selling to get some distribution of a new cigarette, like Kim or Ardath or Du Maurier or all these different brands. Funny how I can remember them. But the thing about them was that you do this, and it would be you in your suit, the guy probably in anything other than a suit, and basically maybe a string vest, especially if it was in Newcastle. I mean, they were like that up there.
Oh, and I've heard they still are.
Yeah. Well, that's just the women. But the thing about this is that it would attract a crowd because it was a bit of give and take and everything. And it was like a gladiator thing. You just didn't want to give up.
Yeah.
Eventually, sometimes, fine, okay, I give in, and off you go. And there was one occasion in Glasgow that I did this, an Asian chap who had a shop, and basically came back in. It's you again. Oh, I'll buy it after all. So it was a bit like I'd converted him almost by mistake. I'd forgotten where I was. But it was that way of actually selling, of never giving up and having some fun doing it. I used to love that. I personally used to love it.
Yeah.
But there is a mindset. But if somebody says no, you don't just go straight for the nearest cliff and throw yourself off of it. You just say, okay, well, what could I have said? Did I say something wrong? And then 2 or 3 minutes and off you go.
But people it's maybe just not the right time for them.
Yeah.
It might be in 6 months down the line for any hundreds of reasons. But it's not it's letting things take its course, and but doesn't stop you coming back again, as you say, and asking the question a little bit later or at a different point in time.
Glasgow's very easy to get lost in. But sorry, Kevin, cut across you.
I was just going to say exactly what you've said there, that you can say all the right things at the time. Doesn't necessarily mean you close a sale. You shouldn't take it negatively.
No.
I had exactly that case this week. Somebody raised a ticket asking us a lot of questions, which I felt were very negative at the time. It's about 3 months ago. Oh, I'm in the United States. Your product for finance leaders. Oh, you're based in the UK, aren't you? So how's that relevant to the United States? Why should I buy it from you? And then he came back with some secondary questions about, can you explain your pricing? I don't get this. Oh, and can I buy in US dollars? I'd answered all his questions. Now this chap's incredibly negative. Suddenly, out of the blue, on Wednesday, came the email back from my last answer, which was 3 months ago. Kevin, can we have a chat about this? I need it for my team. Yeah. Brilliant. Can we have a phone call, Alan? We had a conversation, told him all about it. He bought it within 10 minutes of the phone call.
Amazing, isn't it? It's amazing when people buy into a conversation that you've had, because actually it's a relationship, isn't it? When you're in a sales situation, you're actually building a relationship. Sometimes it doesn't quite work, I just like you, Kevin. I have a number of people coming back to my main business, Finely Fettle, but they'll have a conversation, they'll go away and come back quite often, and they've gone round the houses, and they end up back at mine. It's a bit like the Glasgow thing, and they end up back at mine. All right, okay, well, let's go ahead with it. I don't really want to be selling my business on that basis. But having said that, it is sometimes it takes people a lot longer to come to a decision.
Yeah.
Your post is really quite well written. I've just been glancing over it. It's really quite well written. It's written in a style, in a copywriting style that basically it's literally coming across in a really human way.
Thank you.
You don't write copy in paragraphs. You might have a couple of sentences put together because you're explaining a thing, but then you'll pause and you'll get your next thought out, and it's shorter and it's to the point. And the way in which you've drafted your posts, particularly when it gets to the heart of these issues, is almost cleverly extra readable. And I wonder whether that was just your style or whether it was by design. You might not have been able to help the design, but the truth of it is it comes across really well.
Well, it's very kind of you to say that. It's certainly not by design, because literally it was as it just came out. It was a natural outpouring. I do enjoy writing. I suppose there's an element of you maybe don't realise it, but you evolve a style of your own in any case. And I think over 30 odd years of experience of writing, I think there's a name for the script. Is it Bravo Sierra? But it's really a case of just that's just me. That's just my style, and I just sat there and wrote it out. So what you saw is what you get.
And is this Tony? Is this going to alter your direction of travel, as they say nowadays? Are you still at a fork in the road, or are you've said no, bugger that one, I'm going to go down this one?
Yes, I think I've moved beyond that fork in the road. I think it was one of those multi junctions, where there's various options that I could go through. I could go down a completely different path, but I think part of that process of getting it out, talking about it, talking to a number of people about it, then it's also given me a perspective on what opportunities there are. Because I think whatever you're doing, whatever venture in life, you've got to have a number of resources there. You've got to, potentially you need to have your financial resources and that side of things, but you need the headspace to be able to process things. You need the time budget, the energy to actually fulfill things and go through things. So out of all the myriad of things that I thought, I'd like to do this, or I could do that, or I just want to kick back and do this. But actually, you've got to balance out those resources and decide, well, actually, I would like to do that, but I can't do that yet. And so that, as a result of that process, then I've settled on where I am. So I'm still doing the telecoms. I'm still getting the opportunity to come out and be in beautiful countryside like this. I still get the chance to talk to some amazing people online, and that's So I've settled down, but I've had to. It has given me the chance to refocus and pare away some of the bits, I suppose, bits that I'd accumulated where I wanted to help out, I wanted to support this, or I wanted to give some help to somebody else, and actually realising, well, likes, helping out doesn't pay the mortgage. So I've sort of settled into a routine. I've got a clearer vision of life ahead, and yes, none of what's happened has changed any of the material circumstances in my life. And all the issues that were there on that Saturday morning are still there to a greater or lesser degree. What's changed is my perspective of them and my approach to dealing with them. So that, and that's
well, in
of it.
a lot of LinkedIn's really good at this, and I've seen it several times. Is that when people have found themselves, not just LinkedIn, but other Facebook, and sometimes you see this thing. Somebody has a bit of a tough time, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and then people come in and I'm here for it. But you know that actually it's a bit like you could have a webinar or a seminar. You get them all in a room and say, well, you said that you're going to be here for me. Can you come and buy a ticket and sit in this room with us? But the truth is, one or two of those people will have made a real difference to you. You don't have to name names, but what was said by those people? What was it they did? Did they physically take themselves out of one location and found you in another one? Is this something that anybody else can learn, that if you really want to impact, it's not just saying, by the way, good luck and whatever, but actually doing something of real import to you? What were those couple of things or so that helped you most?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that I would highlight in response to that. One is a response that I got from a very dear friend, someone who's very close to me, and who almost took, I don't want to phrase it wrongly, but I'm going to just say it, took offence at what I'd said, because they felt that they're always there for me. I should know that they could always. It wasn't a case of me not wanting to go to somebody, not wanting to talk to somebody, not wanting to share with people. I literally didn't have the functioning ability to work out what I would say, how I'd broach the subject. It was literally a case of, like a rabbit in the headlights type thing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that I didn't want to seek out help.
So that was that was something you weren't expecting.
Oh,
you were getting told off by a friend.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing that I would say is, I don't think people can anticipate it, because, as you said at the start of the things, I'm sort of seen as the sort of the laid back guy. The sort of everything's quite positive. I've always tend to have an optimistic view of life, and I'm certainly portraying it. And whether people want it or not, I'm prepared to give some advice and offer some support and sort of suggest sort of different ways of doing things. So I'm always there, ready to be helpful to people. But I think the thing is, for anybody else, well, for me included, but the lesson is that you need to be active listeners. You need to just be aware of people around you, and just maybe, is there some mood change? Are they becoming quieter at certain times if a certain topic comes up or in a certain situation? If they say, you're saying, "Oh, are you all right?" and they say, "Oh, yeah, I'm fine," is there a tone in their voice? Is there something that actually they're just passing it over, but actually maybe it's a case of just hanging in there? And a bit like you was saying, Graham, there, in terms of going back with and getting your book out and going over again. Don't just accept them saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm all right." Really? You don't sound all right, or something like that. And just use that emotional tag, that sort of, just identify what it is. Well, you look a bit downcast. You don't sound too happy.
You could probably get away with that with a smile, probably. But you might end up on your back if somebody smacks you one. But no, I suspect not.
No, I think but as ever, it's picking the time, isn't it? It's that there was an advert that was on, and it was only earlier part of this year, and I cannot remember exactly. It was something like Walker's Crisps or a Pringles or some sort of snack type thing. And the scenario was there was this guy who was, I don't know, things weren't too good. You could tell from the storyline, the way it was rolling out, that the weight of the world was on his mind. He'd maybe broken up with a girlfriend or something like that. And he comes to his friend's party and everyone's there. And, oh, have a drink. Yeah, cheers. Oh, yeah, cheers. Thanks for that. You're right. Yeah, fine. Great. Thanks again. And he manages to mooch his way through to the kitchen. And there's a friend in there that's just having a bag of crisps. And it's, oh, hey, man, how are you doing? Oh, fine. Yeah, fine, thanks. Really? And he just offers him offers him to share a crisp or biscuits or whatever it is that it was about. And that just breaks the ice. And they just stand there in a quiet place in the kitchen and obviously start a conversation.
Yeah. But
that's the situation. It's just, if you get a gut feeling about somebody, if they are a bit down, if there's something bothering them, if there's something going on in the back of their mind, there's a tone of voice, they'll say yes, but it's not an enthusiastic yes.
With respect, that's what you've told us two things. One, that your friend, the lady, was almost indignant that you didn't bother to speak to her because she's always been there for you, which is one thing, which would have shaken you up a little bit, I think. And the other thing you're really saying is that you're giving advice that says, well, actually, are you all right? And then, the classic thing is, are you really all right? And then all of a sudden the floodgates open, which is and that's when your task then is active listening, is just listen to what's coming out.
Yes.
But my question was more about, of the range of advices that you got from people, what penetrated most for you?
I think it was that, I suppose, if you were sum it up in a phrase, this too shall pass.
Right.
It was, and I think that applies, and I've heard it said before, but that applies to everything in life. You can have people who are having the best time, everything's coming right. This too will pass. You can have people that are at the worst moment in their life. This too will pass. It works, but it works on both sides of the curve. Yeah. But that was, but let the universe take its course, and this too shall pass. Those were the phrases that stuck with me.
With Kevin and I, that there are two ways of looking at that. This too will pass for Newcastle when they have their moment in the sun, and then the mid-table in a couple of years. And my team, Leeds, which have just been relegated, this too will pass, and we'll rejoin the party at some stage in the near future, and we'll be in a different place. But it's a bit like you shouldn't get too high or too low, because actually just enjoy the oscillations, because at the end of the day you're not really going to make any difference to the relegation. You're not playing on the pitch, so it's I think it's really good advice. This too shall pass. I like that, Tony.
Yeah. No, that stuck to me, and that's now become one of my mottos in life. So yes, so I share it for whatever it's worth.
To say that, well, when I'm thinking back to Graham lying awake in bed worrying about what somebody said and so on, but I can think of countless times where I've lain awake 2:00 in the morning worrying about something. Problem becomes a mountain. Yes, it starts taking you down. How many times have those things that you spent all that time worrying about actually happened? And how many times is the nasty thing that happened something that came so far out of left field you never had a chance to worry about it, but you cope with it anyway?
Yeah. I think in the business jargon, it's the sort of eat the frog type of moment, isn't it? Because you build up all your anticipation about this thing you've got to do, this call you've got to make, this person you've got to see, and actually, when you get it done, it's nowhere near as bad as you thought. The conversation goes far better than you expected, or you certainly walk out of it in a much better place. So it's all part of the same thing, isn't it?
Well, I have to say, this has been a very interesting conversation. Tony, you've been a fantastic guest and braved your soul on the Next 100 Days podcast.
Thank you.
Graham, I think we've got Tony there talking about something that's a very real problem for a lot of business owners. Running your own business, making your own decisions, it's a very lonely place. I can sometimes feel as though the whole world's against you. Tony's been brave enough to put his head above the parapet, start talking about it. I think there's a lot of advice there for anybody feeling in a similar place to Tony to do something about it. And we'd say in the next 100 days, but for Tony, it's been a lot less than 100 days. It's about 4 weeks since he wrote that post, and he's in a very different place.
I think he's transitioning into a different place. I don't think he's there yet. And actually, I think he was very brave, actually, just chatting to us too, in the sense that, we're going to publish this as a podcast that's going to be listened to in 5 years' time. So this is at this moment. It's Tony's moment in time, and the fact that he still has a chipper part to his character, I think will ultimately see him through this. I think he does have a sunny personality. Literally, he was sat out in the sun, and I just think there is that part of him that will probably drag him all the way through to the sunny uplands.
Yeah, but listener, that sunny personality, think of your friends with that sunny personality. That sunny personality can really disguise what's going on underneath.
Yeah, I think, look, it's not the be all and end all. And I'm not saying that it's a simple solution to the sort of scramble that's gone on in his mind. But you'd want to think that for somebody, wouldn't we be wanting to look for some of the things that would be the sort of green shoots of recovery, and the strength that he would have to, get that glass bowl over his head, to stop the sort of noises coming in from outside. I know there's a lot of stuff going on inside, but actually it often starts from other people and situations and so forth. So there's almost like a partition that he's got to draw within his own mind to say, actually, that's not gonna register. Sorry, go away. And I think that is something that it's almost like in the new future where AI is king and the new manager for Leeds United is an AI bot. I don't know whether it's a he or a she. I'll call it a she. And she knows literally everything, every single football move there has ever been. And she then gets somebody else, another little bot, who coaches the team to be the best team in the world. Even when things are going as well as that, in their minds, there could be a bit of a screw up. And all of a sudden they start thinking, actually, you're Leeds United, but I'm starting to think I'm a bit like Newcastle. Oh no, don't think that. Don't think that. Sorry, this is becoming a bit of a boring anecdote, but what I'm really saying is that the best version of ourselves can get screwed up inside, because you start thinking of other things. And I think the way in which Tony can handle all of that is by resting on his friends, resting on the advice, resting on this too shall pass.
There's a lot of things here that all sort of bunched together, and we've had Tony today talking about depression and about things really piling up on top of himself. Frequently, a problem that we talk to people about in our world of Grow CFO. CFOs who are suffering from imposter syndrome, who are suffering from huge lack of confidence.
Yeah.
In many ways, similar things. And I think one of my key learnings coming up recently, and Tony's pinpointed it today, is write stuff down, journal it. Yeah. Tony's just talking about taking a blank sheet of paper there and just dumping everything on it.
Yeah.
That's one. Another one, 5-minute journal. You start the day and you start writing the 3 things down you're grateful for. 3 things you're going to do today to make it a good day. It starts that mindset. I've heard another one that's more about imposter syndrome and lack of confidence. Start writing a success journal. When things go well, things go right for you, write them down so you can go back and refer to them later when you're in a bad patch. That written word in a journal is so powerful.
Yeah, I think it could be. I think there's I know I go back to football again, but being relegated, having your team relegated, it does. All you have to do is have a look at the social media streams of my team and various other teams who've been relegated at this moment, and they're miserable. Lots of them. I mean, frankly, I just see it that my ticket's bought for next year. Shrug it and look forward to a few wins. But a lot of people are really miserable, really angry, and wanting to lash out. And there's almost a parallel there with what's happened with Tony. That inside there's something going on inside. There's so many different things going on, and it just couldn't function. That's what he said earlier. It couldn't actually get himself out of that fog.
Yeah, and when you're in a fog, there's all sorts of people want to help you, but Tony, stuck in the headlights, did not know how to reach out.
No. I know, and so I would say, Kevin, that it's a difficult one. We're not experts. We've listened to somebody who is expert at his own situation, and by pushing him a little bit, he's given us a little bit more of the sense of what he's going through, but also what other people have done to sort of shake him up that's got through. And I think the answer to that is the specific one-to-one type of advice that enables people to really take it on board. I'm not sure that you can do that as a keyboard warrior. I think it's probably helpful. It's all kind of like grist, but I think the people who really get through are the ones who have had that beer, have provided that kind of solid advice. And I think that's probably what he still needs now. So, Kevin, on that bombshell, we'll draw another of our podcasts to a close. I've been Graham Arrowsmith.
I've been Kevin Appleby. Goodbye.
Goodbye.